People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Archaeology Show. TAS goes behind the headlines to bring you the real stories about archaeology and the history around us. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeology Show, episode 161.
On today's show, we talk about ancient ear surgery, a Roman mosaic floor, and old pants.
Let's dig a little deeper into your ears. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. How's it going?
Hello.
Yeah, so we are in Visalia, California, which is kind of in the central western valley area, north of Bakersfield.
Like almost getting into the foothills. Well, very close to getting into the foothills of the Sierras.
Yeah.
Not quite, but pretty close.
Yeah, we're about a 40-minute drive or so from Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon National Park.
Yeah, and like we totally wanted to go, but then I was looking at the weather and they're like potentially closed for snow. And I'm like, well, it's like 77 degrees down here. It's kind of crazy that half an hour away, but anyway.
Yeah, they get a lot of snow up there at the edge of the Sierras.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've got 3 great articles and a surprise for you at the end of the show, but stay tuned for that. We'll talk about that at the end of segment 3. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
This first article is from Smithsonian Magazine, and it's entitled 5,300-Year-Old Skull Offers Earliest Known Evidence of Ear Surgery.
Yeah. This story was reported in a couple different news sources, and I just really like the Smithsonian article the best out of all of them, so that's why I linked to that one. But the gist of it is that in northern Spain, in Reynoso, which is a town in the Spanish province of Burgos, there is a single-chamber tomb called the Dolmen of El Pendon. And in that tomb, there are the remains of approximately 100 people.
That's a heck of a grave.
I know. So, like, that's setting the stage here for, like, what we're looking at. We've got a fairly large grave in this part of Spain. Now, this grave, they believe that it dates to somewhere between 3,800 to 3,000 BCE, which is like 5,300 years ago.
That's a long time. Very
long time ago.
They were building pyramids back then.
Yeah, totally. They were doing lots of amazing things back then, including apparently performing surgery.
Yeah, so one of the skulls they found was that of an elderly woman, and it looks like, based on damage to the skull, but then healing of that damage, that the woman experienced 2 different surgeries.
Yeah, the first one was on her right ear. And I don't know how they know that that one was first, but that's how it was described in the article.
It may have healed more.
Yeah, maybe there's more healing on it or something, I'm sure. But the first one was on the right ear, and they think it was maybe to treat like an infection or some other problem. Probably it was a visible infection or problem, which was how they knew to even do the surgery that they did. And then the second one was on the left ear. And again, because of the way the healing happened on the bone, it could have been back-to-back surgeries, or it could have been months or years after the right ear. They really can't tell exactly when that one happened in relation to the first surgery.
Yeah.
However, there are 2 surgeries, evidence of 2 surgeries on her skull.
Yeah, the bone growth around the perforations, let's call them, indicate that the woman did survive the surgeries, by at least a month or so, because you can tell we have really good evidence and really good, I don't know if evidence is the right word, but really good data from just medical data, how bone grows when it's impacted. When bone is cut or damaged, the body instantly starts repairing it. Yeah. And we basically know what those rates are for normal, healthy, functioning adults.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me here is I don't really understand why they can't get a better idea of when the two surgeries happened in relation to each other. If they do know that the woman survived both surgeries by at least a month, you would think that you would see much more healing on one side versus the other.
I think it probably has to do with the fact that it's, 5,000 years old, and there's probably been some. Taphonomy is the process that bones go through after somebody dies. Usually that leads to fossilization, but when you talk about the whole taphonomic process, but obviously these aren't fossilized, so they're somewhere in that process. But during that time, it gets crushed, minerals start doing stuff, and animals may have damaged some of the bones, and all kinds of things could have happened. So
I think with a skull this old, or a skeleton this old, it's really unusual to find it completely intact. And if you do look at the pictures, you'll see that it is definitely in pieces, and those pieces are from the burial process, the post-mortem, whatever happened to it in situ in the ground. That's where the breaking happened.
It looks to me, in my professional opinion, like the woman had a mastoidectomy. What do you think?
Oh, do you think so?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So,
right.
What's a mastoidectomy?
Well, so the mastoidectomy is the surgery to treat the infection of the mastoid bones, and the mastoid bones are located just behind the ear.
Is that I'm remembering my human osteology. Is that the three little bones that are in there?
No, those are like in your ear. That's like the
ear bones.
hammer, anvil, stirrup, I think, are the three that are in your ear.
For like equilibrium and stuff.
Yeah. The mastoid is part of... Oh man, putting me on the spot here to remember my human osteology.
Well, it'll be part of the skull right behind the ear, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is. That's like your temporal bone, I thought that was right there. So it might be
in front of your ear, I think. Yeah, the temporal's in front of your ear.
I can't remember.
This is your, yeah.
Really should have looked up a skull anatomy.
That's fine.
So long.
It's not the osteology podcast.
It's not the osteology podcast. But anyway, yes, right behind the ear. And what can happen when this gets infected is that the infection spreads to the air pockets that are in the bone, because the mastoid bone is not there's some porous parts to it, and it can fill them with infection. And this can eventually lead to meningitis or blood clots, which are both very dangerous. So the infection is something that you want to treat, as easily as possible. But of course, pre-antibiotics, the only thing you could do was drill into the head and hope for the best, I guess. Yeah.
And the thing I'm wondering with these, early surgeons, which was probably just cousin Joe, what was the indication that she was having some problem, aside from her saying, hey, my ear really freaking hurts, this does not feel great? Did they have a lot of experience with that? Was that common? And somebody, I'm willing to bet, at some point in time just took a pick to their own ear because it was hurting so bad.
Because it hurts so bad. Yeah.
And maybe when they stabbed themselves in the head, it felt better. So that got refined. The
evolution of that, of understanding the human body enough to know that if you do this thing, then this other thing will potentially go away or feel better. It is interesting to think about how that develops. In this case, like I said, it's relatively common to find remains with this surgery having been done to them. It's common enough that it has its own name, right? Mastoidectomy. It's not something that is seen on modern bones, obviously, because we have antibiotics now. So that's how we would treat an ear infection like this. But it's common enough it has its own name because it happens so much. In fact, the first written descriptions of this surgery are from the 1700s. Yeah. So you can imagine if they are doing it that long ago, obviously they probably were doing it way before that too. We don't have a written history of it. Yeah.
The first, some of the first evidence prior to this finding that's outside of written history is from actual skeletal remains in the Proto-Byzantine era from 330 to 824 of the Common Era. So, which is, what is that, 1200 or so years ago? Which is actually not that long ago. This skull really pushes the date back for this surgery. It's not too big of a surprise. I mean, people, humans and Homo sapiens all over the place had been doing some pretty advanced things by that time. So, having this knowledge, and people who live on the landscape and encounter this kind of stuff probably more often than not, especially in Spain where it's cold, really cold for the winter, and you live in just damp, cold areas, you're going to get ear infections. That's just going to happen. Yeah. People have been dealing with this, and like I said, I'd like to see that first person that just stabbed himself in the ear was I'm done with this. I can't handle it anymore. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, hey, that actually doesn't feel too bad.
Yeah. Well, and I do wonder exactly what was happening there. Are they basically releasing the pressure buildup when they drill into the skull like that?
Yeah, probably. Well, if there's air pockets in there and you can release those air pockets.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
I don't know. We're not surgeons, obviously.
No, we're not.
I will stab a projectile point into your skull if you want me to, but I really advise against it. So let's say the 10th caller on the show today will get their ear stabbed with a projectile point. Good thing we don't have any callers.
Or projectile points, actually.
Or projectile points. Hey, I can nap you a projectile point from this parking lot.
Oh, my God.
So,
well, what I love about this story is that it turns things on its head, as always, as archaeology
turns them on its head.
Oh man, I didn't even do that on purpose. Yeah, but I love stories that come from archaeology that do that, because you always think of people 5,000 years ago being relatively dumb when it comes to anything related to the human body or medicine or science or anything like that. But these people clearly were able to look at a person with a problem, see this problem, whether it was from just the pain that she was experiencing, or maybe there's actual pus like coming out of her ear from the infection. Like that could have been happening. And they were like, all right, how do we solve this problem? And there's probably some trial and error, but you know what? They are way smarter than we give them credit for. They figured out a solution and, humans marched along. So I love that.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have been pretty painful to drill into somebody's head.
It really would have.
I'm thinking of drills that we see in Native American societies. Now, Native American culture 5,000 years ago in North America was, I would say, not as technologically advanced as they would have been.
The metals and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't really 5,000 years ago in Spain. I mean, they kind of they were getting close to it, but they did have drills though, projectile point drills, like stone drills, we should call them.
Yeah.
Because we see that kind of stuff. A lot of times you'd have an arrowhead or something, or a spear tip that was maybe broken, and then they would reutilize that by whittling it down. Because you would see like the hafted end of a different type of tool, and then like shaped into a drill point. But these drills, I had to imagine, were roughly the same thing as these guys would have been using, which is basically just a pointed piece of stone,
like
attached,
a really sharp rock.
attached to a piece of wood that you would, you see people starting fires with like a piece of wood, that kind of thing, rubbing it between their hands. That's how they would have probably used this kind of a drill.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So,
well, and in order to take that type of a drill and puncture somebody's skull with it, they would have definitely had to restrain her or even fully drug her in order to get through it, because the pain would have been just like insane.
Have some of that 6,000-year-old bourbon on hand.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And like, ironically, of course, because they're treating an infection, though they didn't know they were treating an infection, they were just treating symptoms, really. Yeah. But infection would have been a huge concern, because when you open up somebody's head like that, infection can always set in. So
yeah, as we mentioned, the growth around the injury or the wound, I'm going to call it that because I'm not going to call it surgery.
Oh, you're
anyway,
not?
No, not really. The growth around that indicates she did survive for a while, but I don't know what kind of quality of life she had.
Yeah, another thing I would be curious about, because these type of things, they just didn't know what they were doing, and
I mean, they basically lobotomized her a little bit. I don't know if she like. I don't think they cut even
parts of her brain out necessarily.
I'm just saying. So there's one kind of sketchy aspect to this article.
Yeah,
only because they're taking a little bit of a leap on this one, but. One of the authors is quoted as saying that the flint blade discovered at the area where all these other skeletons were found, these remains, shows traces of being used to cut bone. Now, we can see that on projectile points. You can look at the micro wear patterns on the projectile point, and you can tell different things it was used to cut. We've got a lot of experimental archaeology that shows, it looks like this if you're cutting bone versus wood versus like an antler or tanning a hide, scraping a hide or something like that. And then also the tool, not only is there cut bone evidence, but it looks like it was heated multiple times to temperatures of up to 662 degrees Fahrenheit. And they say possibly for the purpose of cauterization. Now, first off, we don't even know if this was the tool used to work on the woman, because if she survived, why is the tool even still there?
Why is it there?
Yeah. So, but here's the thing too. This is a flint blade, and those types of materials, there's proof of heat treating those types of chert and flint and then that crystalline silicate material. When you heat treat some of those, it actually makes them stronger.
It does. Yeah.
So we see evidence of heat treating all over North America. And, you can see it with, you can see the fire cracked rocks around a ring when they get the fires to really hot temperatures to break the rocks around it. And they'll throw these materials once they're flint napped and sometimes before they're flint napped into the fire to heat it up. It changes the crystalline structure of the rock, aligns it a little more, and just hardens it and makes it more durable, basically.
Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't want to leap to the conclusion that because the blade was heat treated, they were doing that for the purposes of cauterization.
It could have been, I mean, let's even assume that this is the one that they used to drill into her head, which is a leap in itself.
It is a leap, yeah.
But I would say that, I mean, heads are, really hard. You always tell me I have a hard head, but they really do have a hard, thick head. And just making the tool stronger so it doesn't break would have been smart. So they would have probably heat treated it anyway, since they knew about that clearly. Yeah. Just to make it stronger so it didn't break off in her skull.
Yeah. And really, if this was the blade that was used to drill into her skull, I mean, I feel like we need to rethink what this entire mass grave is all about. Because if you're burying somebody with the implements used to work on them, then isn't that more like a hospital? So, I don't know. Yeah. There's a whole lot of leaps being taken just with that one sentence. And I would like to personally rein it back in and be like, cool, she had surgery and she survived. And we know they heat treated blades. Yeah. And that's kind of where I would draw the line on that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, while this woman's remains were lying buried in Spain with holes drilled in her skull, the Romans were making pretty floors in London. So let's talk about that on the other side of the break.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Is your vehicle stopping like it should? Does it squeal or grind when you brake? Don't miss out on summer brake deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome back to the Archaeology Show, episode 161. And as Chris awkwardly alluded to before the break, we are moving to London, where an ancient Roman floor, more than 1,500 years old, was found under a London street.
I feel like we were obligated to talk about this because it's literally everywhere.
I know.
So if you haven't seen this, I don't know what kind of rock you're living under, but it's been all over the place.
It's been all over. And now I know that I get trolled on my social media by archaeology news stories because I look at them so often. So the more popular ones, I always see them no matter if I'm looking for it or not. But this one is cool.
Yeah, and you can find this article all over the place. The particular one linked in the show notes is from Newsweek. So take a look at it in our show notes. Just look down at your phone or whatever you're listening on and you'll see the link there.
And do look at it and also watch the little video in it because they have great, beautiful images of the floors that we're about to talk about. And they also have a photogrammetry recreation of the floor too. It's really cool.
Over at the Archaeotech podcast, we call it a photogrammetric recreation.
Oh, is that what the real word is? I'm smart.
That's all right. You're not on the Archaeotech podcast. So go listen to the Archaeotech podcast if you want to know more about photogrammetric recreations.
Yeah. But anyway, that video is really cool. I definitely recommend watching it.
One cool thing about this is, again, 1,500 years old, 1,500 years old. Yeah. That's insane, first off. Yeah. And second, it was found near what they call the Shard in London, which is the tallest skyscraper in the UK. Now, to build a really tall skyscraper, you've got to dig down, I don't know, 100 feet more to put the pilings in. I mean, you can almost envision it as, it keeps the skyscraper from tipping over. I mean, it really is a foundational thing, not just it doesn't do that really, but it's more foundational for the weight that the skyscraper has on it. And while they're building that and other things, presumably in London for the last 1,500 years, as kings and queens have died and killed each other and had sex with their cousins and done whatever they're going to do, this Roman mosaic floor is just chilling under the dirt.
There. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah. The way that stuff, you had no idea was there, just all of a sudden pops up because of some sort of new building usually, right? Is crazy. And in the case of this one, this is a project that's in advance of the Liberty at Southwark. That there might be some British way of saying Southwark. I don't know what it is, but
Southwark.
American me is saying Southwark.
Southwark.
It's a scheme to provide shops, restaurants, and homes in the area. I'm imagining one of those like hipstery kind of places that are popping up all over the place now, you know? And of course, here comes CRM again. Yeah. They're doing this project, or they're doing the excavation for this building, and that's when they found this.
Yeah, so this was found under the HS2 project. Oh, shoot. I'm just used to saying that.
I know, right?
This ironically wasn't found.
Not part of that project. Yeah.
I mean, that line has to end somewhere. It probably goes right into London.
It probably does.
Yeah,
but yeah.
They'd have found it eventually.
This is the largest section of Roman mosaic discovered in London for at least half a century. Because I guess Roman mosaics are somewhat common, you know, to be found.
I love that fact too.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the only Roman mosaic
No, not the only
found.
one. Just
it's the largest one, and not in the whole century, but in like a half century.
Yeah. So they do find these relatively often, which again is so crazy what you're talking about with how much building that there is that's going on there.
That's so oddly specific. It's like, this is the 34th largest mosaic found in the last 3.5 years.
So it dates to the late 2nd or early 3rd century CE.
You know, if this were an American article, we'd also be talking about the size of football fields. These different things. Like, the mosaic is the size of 0.42 football fields.
It's like 0.042 probably.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very tiny.
Yeah.
So it may have been part of a large and lavish dining room known as a triclinium. And also, I love this part, there's evidence of another mosaic floor underneath it.
They put a mosaic on top of a mosaic?
They totally did. Hashtag home reno 200 CE. I love it.
I bet they just wanted a more open floor plan.
Right? But think about what that means, though. Like, this structure was there long enough that they decided they needed to redo the decoration in their space or something like that, probably. Like, that's the only reason to redo a whole mosaic floor, right? So I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Home reno. Always been doing it. Always will do it.
I know. We need an HD TV show just called, like, you know, Roman Reno. Something like that.
Ancient Renos.
Yes. Ancient Renos.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So there are 2 decorated panels, and the way they are arranged is there's like basically like all these red, sort of variegated red mosaic tiles around them and between them. So the floor was mostly this red variegated color, and then the panels were probably punctuating the important parts of the room. And there's 2 of these panels.
Yeah, the largest of which shows colorful flowers surrounded by bands of intertwining strands. It actually looks really cool.
It is. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. This motif has a name. It's a common, I guess, Roman motif called a guilloche, Guilloche.
Sure, that sounds like the best pronunciation I could come up with. Yeah.
Yep.
And it also has lotus flowers and several geometric elements, including a pattern known as a Solomon's knot.
Oh, yeah.
And a Solomon's knot, it's like basically 2 ovals that are interlocking in the middle. Like they're woven under each other in the middle part of it. It's really hard to describe.
It looks like the middle, it looks almost like a square knot.
Yeah.
Like if these weren't rounded on the ends.
Yeah, totally.
But since they're rounded on the ends, it also looks kind of like an impossible figure.
It is kind of impossible. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And what I particularly love about this is the color. I think that the color is just so gorgeous. It was probably like originally vibrant reds and blues, or even blacks. I read in one description that it was described as black, but in the pictures it looks sort of like a reddish burnt orange, and then kind of a gray blue, like a faded denim blue kind of a color. And the colors today, as we're uncovering it, I just think are so beautiful. I'm like inspired as like a color person and a knitter to like go find those colors and make something with them.
Yeah. The English heritage archaeologist, former archaeologist with English Heritage, Dr. David Neal, is he's actually a leading expert in Roman mosaics, and he attributed this design to the Acanthus Group, which is a team of mosaicists working in London who developed their own unique style. So a group of people making mosaics. And actually, when I read that, I was like, I said I read it as a team of masochists. I'm like, masochists?
Like, wait a minute.
What are they making mosaics for? That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But mosaicists, which is a pretty cool word.
Which just shows you how many mosaics they've actually found in this area that they can like attribute it to a certain group.
Yeah, have a job called a mosaicist.
Yeah.
Which that makes sense. These are really hard to do.
Very intricate.
There's a lot of work, and you would have your own style. It's like when you can identify the style of different potters for ceramics and things like that. You know, there's very different techniques to use and subtleties that help define the creator.
It's a true art form. When I was in college, I took an art history class, and we had to do a project that was some kind of piece of art that was influenced by history. So I decided to do a mosaic. And boy, did it look like a child like put together that mosaic when I was done with it. It was just so much harder than I thought it would be. And I thought it would be like, oh, you just like throw some tiles on, done. Oh man, like planning it out and getting things laid in the proper place. It was so much harder than I expected.
I used to be pretty good at mosaics, but they were solely made out of macaroni.
Oh, yeah, that's a skill.
Yeah. I'm going to call myself a macosaicist. So put that on a t-shirt.
I have so many questions. Okay. Moving on. The smaller panel of the two, is a lot simpler, and it has the Solomon knots again, and then these sort of like smaller stylized flowers.
This would have been where the Roman plebe soldiers were, because they also think that this could have been a dining room of an upper class Roman hotel, like for high ranking officers. Right. But I'm thinking like the high ranking officers stand here. This is your line, and you guys stand over here. All the first lieutenants.
Or maybe they put the women at one table and the men at the other.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't really know how gender played into those sorts of roles, but yeah.
Some things that play into that whole upper class hotel sort of thing are the other remains that were found near here, which include lavishly painted walls, terrazzo floors, other mosaic floors, coins, jewelry, and decorated bone pins that, again, just allude to this was a place for some sort of wealthy elite.
For sure.
Yeah,
I guess there's also like the remains of a mansion next door that they think probably belonged to one rich family. It was the home of one family.
You know, I have to imagine with all the construction that's happened in London specifically in the past, I don't know, 2,000 years, really 1,000 years, but all the construction that's happened and then the massive amount of land movement for big building construction in the last decade, or not decade, century, they must have, like, this would just go into this depth of Roman history layer in London, because every time they dig down somewhere, they find other stuff. So there must be a GIS map somewhere where this goes in, and they know, okay, so 2 blocks away, we found this at the same level. So that's probably contemporaneous. We found this at the same level. Yeah. That's probably contemporaneous. And I just would love to see the multiple layers of Roman and other occupation in these GIS layers as they're excavating London.
Yeah, totally. And it would probably be pretty hard, though, unless they have really, really great stratigraphy, because the ground is always moving, especially when you have a city on top of it. And it's getting layers built on, and then fires burn things away. And like, there's so many things going on. I bet it's a really confusing and...
I mean, looking at this floor, there hasn't been any movement on that in 1,500 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's
but
true.
That being said, with that good occupational stratigraphy that's artificially created by humans, even if there is some movement, I mean, they do have earth movement over there and some softer soil sometimes. But even with earth movement, those layers would still flow, and you'd be able to follow the layers and look at the different soil types and things like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, for this project, the next steps are to basically lift the current mosaic out so that they can see what's underneath. And I can't even imagine how much work and effort will go into preserving this thing while they pull it out. But I also am very excited to see what the below level looks like. I hope it's not a plain, boring mosaic. It better be something even more spectacular. I
know.
Although that's unlikely, right?
There are some chunks taken out of this one. I wonder if after these pictures we're looking at here in the article we're taking, they've maybe augured a little bit into those, or maybe they just don't want to damage what's underneath it. But yeah, they have said, I mean, we did report on that. They said there seems to be evidence of another mosaic underneath this. So
yeah. Who knows what they'll find in there?
I'd like to see evidence of a fight amongst the mosaicists.
Oh.
Like somebody else was hired.
Like the other mosaic house is like the one underneath. Like they got covered up because they were out of favor or something.
Exactly. Like, I can't believe you have that mosaic.
Oh my God. They are so not the cool ones anymore. You've got to get the acanthus group now.
I know. So... All right. Well, I guess if you were making a mosaic, you probably had to kneel down a lot and, They probably would have had to wear some pants. Let's talk about some of the oldest pants ever found on the other side of the break.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome back to the Archaeology Show, episode 161, and we are cruising into segment 3, talking about some pants.
Pants.
I was excited about this story, and I almost got my credit card out to buy the full article. Yeah, because it is so cool. But you know me and my textiles, I just love this stuff.
Did this one knock your pants off?
Oh my God.
It's really knock your socks off.
It is knock your socks off. I think you should leave your pants on, like always in all like public circumstances.
I, just so the listeners know, have never recorded this podcast with pants on. Did you know that?
Oh, is that so?
Yeah. Actually, I do have pants on.
Yeah, I think you're lying right now.
Yeah. But you wouldn't know. Hashtag podcasting is the best. Hashtag I'm not suited for video.
Oh my God.
All
right. All right. Back to the article. So this is called World's Oldest Trousers Use Methods Still Employed by Modern Fashion. And I pulled the link from the Ancient Origins article, which I don't normally prefer those articles, that website, over others, but really they did the best job of like breaking down this story. And I feel like they probably did read the original article, maybe.
Yeah.
This is the oldest pair of trousers that have ever been discovered. And it's published, the official article is published in Archaeological Research in Asia, volume 29, March 2022. So this like legit just came out.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have access to this. Like you said, it was, what was it, $25 for
it was.
Like 24 hours of access?
Yeah. So, and reading the abstract, I got a lot from that. And I was able to fill in some of the stuff that I read in the Ancient Origins article too. So...
Yeah, and just so you guys know, don't ever get disheartened if you can't get the whole article, because the whole point of an abstract is to
like summarize.
state the problem, state basically what you did to solve the problem and what the results were. Did it work or did it not work?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is the entire article. And the only reason you would go to the article is if you wanted a more detailed explanation of the methods, the background research that went into it, their conclusions, future research potentials, stuff like that. But the abstract is the article. So you can get a lot out of that. And
in this one, too, you can see the figures, which are mostly images of the pants and the other articles that were found in this tomb. So I said tomb. So let's get to where it was found and who it is and what it is. Yeah. So it's the excavation of a tomb in the Tarim Basin in Yanghai, China, which is in the northwest part of the country. This site dates to between 1200 to 1100 BCE. And the remains are a male, and he's basically got a full set of clothing, including 8 wool garments. And there's a little video. I love when these guys do videos. So there's a little video in this article, and you can go see the actual excavation of it. And I was kind of envisioning like a stone, like cave or like situation like that. It's not. It's like a full on burial in the ground. They're like peeling dirt away from the remains, and they still have this amazing preservation with 8 woolen garments, and they are mostly complete. Yeah, it's so cool. So definitely go look at the pictures so that you can see what I'm talking about. But I was amazed by the preservation.
Now, you said wool garments. This is like legit sheep wool garments?
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. I was assuming sheep wool, but nothing that I read specified sheep. Yeah. But given where it's at in China, I would say probably sheep is most likely.
Yeah, I don't know anything about like domesticated sheep and its proliferation across Europe.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Yeah. But there's nothing else that I can think of that they would have had at that time that would be domesticated enough that they could be making like a full on, clothing, a costume almost out of it. So, a full-on outfit. So this guy is known as Turfan Man because of where he was located, I guess.
Clever.
Yes. So what is interesting here and why they call these the oldest trousers is that clothing at this time, it's been established that it's primarily like skirts, capes, that sort of like blousey flowing thing. And so it was very unusual to find pants. Obviously, they just weren't really wearing them. So the hypothesis is that this was potentially for horse riding, and that's why he had that split pant detail going on.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, a really fast search on domestication of sheep.
Oh, sure.
By the way, one of the earliest animals to be domesticated, probably in Mesopotamia, Iraq, Iran area.
Gotta have clothes. Gotta be warm. Makes sense.
Gotta have clothes. That's right. And it actually spread out pretty quickly around the whole Middle East, Central Asia, India, China, Japan, Mongolia, and eventually, of course, Africa, Europe, and the Americas.
Yeah.
So sheep are pretty much everywhere at this point.
Yeah. Your early materials for making fabric, wool, and linen or flax, something in that family. And then cottons and stuff come along a little bit later, I think. So like that makes sense. So these pants are made of wool. And like I said, they're very unique because mostly people were wearing more like robe type of things. Not really robes, like ponchos and skirts and
capes.
Open capes. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I love that skirts and capes are like the thing mentioned.
Yeah, I know.
What people were generally wearing at this time.
I know. I mean, I think that all men should wear skirts, but hey, that's just me personally.
Well, but why don't we live in a time where we generally wear capes?
I don't know. You should work on changing that because
I just want a
cape a day, that sounds amazing.
I mean, I want just like capes hanging up by the door.
Yeah.
Like which capes are you going to wear?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to breakfast, I'll have my crepe cape. So, I can have a fancy one for that. And,
oh my God. Yeah. Bring them back, dude. Go for it.
If we're going roller skating and you have your skate cape.
Yep.
I mean, just like all kinds of stuff. So
sounds great. I'm on board always.
Let's bring it back.
Good for a cape moment.
That's right.
Let's do it. So these pants are super well made. And they show a variety of weaving, sewing, and also finishing techniques that are still used today. So construction-wise, we've got 2 leg pieces, like you would imagine. And they sort of widen up in the hip or thigh area.
Yeah, they do.
I don't even know what that means.
Just like normal. My hips, I got my pants widen in the thigh area.
That's true. But they widen almost excessively, which makes me wonder if...
Like billowing almost?
Yeah, and they might have had like a drawstring type of thing to close them or something. That part is unclear how they were closed.
I mean, if they're looser, they do allow for a lot more airflow and stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, which is weird and is not like a modern construction technique, is that there's basically a crotch piece that just like bam, like slapped it right on that section where the 2 leg pieces would meet up at the crotch. So that's not normally how you see crotches and pants constructed today. They're a little bit more like conformed to the body, and if there is a crotch piece, it's like a small like separate piece for leggings or something like that. So this is definitely different, but they are hypothesizing that maybe it was bunching there that would allow increased mobility and maybe even some extra cushioning. Like if you're riding a horse and you need some cushion.
This guy went to his tailor and was like, listen, I need some extra cushioning right here.
Right. That's all hypothesis, speculation right there for sure. Because we don't really know what they were thinking when they constructed them. But
I know there's people that do reconstructions of certain eras of clothing and stuff. It was really cool to see somebody put together something like this.
Oh, yes. Go watch that video for sure, because they did. They did.
Yeah.
They saw all these different weaving techniques, and they just wanted to prove that what they were saying about it was actually recreatable and really possible. So using the material from the time, and weaving has been around for millennia. So like that's something that hasn't changed. So they were able to hand make the yarn and then weave it into these pieces of fabric and then cut it and hand sew it into the full costume that this guy would have been wearing. It's amazing. Like, you should go look at the video. It's really cool.
We could do an entire podcast with its own episodes on experimental archaeology.
Yes.
It's really cool.
This is like, if I were to go back to school, I want to go back to school and be an experimental textile archaeologist. And I just want to like recreate old clothing from various different eras across the world. If anybody is looking to hire somebody to do that, I have the skills. I want to do that.
Nice.
And I have the skills because I have a loom and I can spin spin and knit and weave. Anyway, yeah. Okay. So back to the fabric themselves, back to the ways that the fabric was constructed. We have a twill going on here, and twill is when the weft yarn, which is the horizontal threads going across, right?
Is that the one you pass through with the shuttle thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you remembering words. Good for you. So so what the weft does is it passes over 2 or more warp threads at once. So it jumps over 2 and then under 2 and over 2 or some combination of threads, but it's at least 2 at a time. And then on the next pass, it will basically shift over one direction, one thread, at least one thread in one direction or the other. And so it creates a lot of like chevron-y diamond looking patterning on it, right? Okay. And the reason that you do this is because it creates a super durable fabric, number one. By doubling up over those warp threads, you get this thicker fabric. It's really durable. And we use it today for denim and twill pants. Like, look at your jeans right now that you're wearing, and you'll probably be able to detect like a slightly like diagonal shape to it. That is that twill patterning, right? And the other thing it does is it gives a lot of like movement to the fabric. It allows it to stretch better than a basic woven garment would. So it's thicker, but it's also stretchier, I guess you could say. I love twill. Twill is the only kind of stuff I've ever done on my loom, and it's just really fun to make, and it makes a really cool, really awesome fabric.
I don't ever remember you making me any pants.
I have not made you pants. That is accurate.
But I was in the Navy, and I'll never wear cotton pants again. So
I can make you some wool pants. Would you like some wool pants?
I'm not wearing wool pants. I will actually start on fire.
I'm going to put that on my list of things to make for you. Got to get my loom and bring it in the RV, though. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Not going to happen.
So the twill method seems like it's probably been developed independently around the world, because there's samples of twill in Europe that are 200 years older than this. Not pants necessarily, but just samples of twill fabrics. So it's the kind of thing that people could create on their own, and it probably developed independently, but that's just a guess. Okay, so that's what most of the fabric of the pants is, all of the sort of undecorated parts, if you will. Now, there are a couple really nicely decorated sections across the knee particularly, and that is what they are called tapestry weaving.
Oh, yeah.
So I would like to say one thing here. Twill weaving and tapestry weaving are basically the same thing, but what's going on with the tapestry thing, as they're calling it, is that they're making a decoration. So if you look at the part of the knees, on the knees, it's thicker because you've got multiple colors going on, and whenever you have multiple colors, you get a thicker fabric. But it's a decorated geometric inclined T-hook pattern, and that pattern is done. It's the tapestry thing where you have the different colors interlocking, and you're creating it. It's a slightly different method of construction, but it does create a very similar fabric.
Right.
Now, in this case, what's really interesting about this fabric is that it's the same pattern that you see on bronze vessels that date to the same time period.
Okay. So
you're seeing like mirroring the same decoration, which is really cool.
Nice.
So just really quickly, the Turfin man's outfit, it consisted of more than just the pants. It's a whole outfit. There's a poncho, there's a belt at the waist, there's a single pair of bands that are braided to tighten the trouser legs below the knee area. And then there's another pair of bands that are to tighten the leather boots in the ankle area. And then finally, there's a wool headband. So, I mean, he's got the full regalia going on, and it's all so well preserved. It's really great. Now,
he was buried with this.
He was. So he was buried in this outfit, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if this was really was like an everyday utilitarian outfit, or if they buried him in fancy clothes.
Some kind of decoration. Yeah. Well, and to that point, the headband, it's got 4 bronze discs and 2 seashells sewn on it. So it's a little bit fancier for the time period.
Sure.
And then they also found a leather bridle, a wooden horse bit, and a battle axe with him. So this is sort of adding to this hypothesis that maybe he was a horseman and also a warrior, maybe, because of the things he's buried with and the clothing and the pants that you wouldn't normally see on a normal person. So just a hypothesis, but they need to do more research, it sounds like, to kind of go further than that. But that's where they're at right now, is it's potentially a warrior horseman. I love that.
Warrior horseman. That's going to be my punk rock band. Yep. All right.
Nice.
All right. Anything left to say on these?
Oh my gosh, so much more. I'm so interested in the fabric. in the fabric making process and the history of it and the development of the different techniques. But we'll leave it there and go read the article, and you might be able to learn more about it from the article.
All right. Well, before you stop this podcast and move on to your next one, don't skip it. We have two pretty big announcements right now. The first one is Rachel and I, and we're going to be hopefully eventually, we're not going to do this right away because we need to get our process straight, but we're going to be doing a live show every 2 weeks. We're going to start it every 2 weeks. I'd like to get to every week, but let's start slow. Every 2 weeks, starting on Wednesday if you're listening to this in real time. So that is, I don't know what day that is. I should have had my calendar up, but that is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. And it's going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Now, you have to sign up to get the link to go here. It's using a third-party service called Crowdcast that we're going to be doing it on. You can find the sign up. Either look down at your show notes on the phone, and you'll find those, a link to the Crowdcast sign up, but you'll also find a link to Culturo Media, which is the overarching brand we created last year to be over the APN, to run live events, other podcast networks we want to start, and other things we want to do. So the real links are going to be on Culturo Media, and there's a Culturo knowledge share thing, it's called, right on the front. You click on that, and eventually we'll start just sharing the link to individual pages there. But in the meantime, go sign up for this. It's totally free. If you can't make the live recording, because it is at a weird time, we're trying to find the best time to do this. But again, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is 7 p.m. Eastern time, we had to pick a time. We move our RV on the weekends a lot, so Saturday is just not going to work out for us right now. Now, if we end up adding more shows, we may do some bouncing around at some different times and stuff like that. But we want it to be consistent. So again, if you can't make the live recording, you can watch the recording if you're a member of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Members pay us $7.99 a month. There is an annual rate that saves you, I think, 20 or 30%, and you can just get billed once a year. I want to say it's 20%. I can't remember what the discount is, though. But if you go to archpodnet.com/members, you can do that. If you're already a member, first, thank you. Second, there is a section in there, and I might be adding a new one for links to this Culturo Media page, or I might be just putting this video on the APN page because of the way that our system works for all that. So anyway, check those out. Again, if you want to see the I call it the virtual ticket, if you want to see any past live events or any past things that we're going to do, like the Life in Ruins podcast is doing a live event in a few weeks too. If you want to catch that on a rerun because you couldn't see it and you want to see the recording, it's going to be on your members page for members only. The other thing that's also on your members page is bonus content, something we have been really bad at doing, but we're going to get a lot better at that starting with this episode. So we have a fourth article we're going to talk about, and I'll give you the title of it here: Archaeometric Studies on Rock Art at 4 Sites in the Northeastern Great Basin of North America. This is a really cool article about a newer type of rock art dating, and that is in the bonus content. So if you're a member of the APN, again, go to archpodnet.com, click on the members link in the navigation, and then you'll see bonus content right there, and it'll be listed right there with all the other bonus content that's still there. And you can listen to that right on the APN website. There's no commercials, and it's a benefit for members.
We just appreciate all of you guys that are members so much, and we wanted to try and make sure that we were delivering a little bit more content. So that's where this whole extra bonus stuff is coming from. We're going to do it for as many of the podcasts as we can, and then the live shows too. Like, I think it's going to be really fun to be there live. So we would love to see as many of you guys show up live as possible. But if you can't make it, we totally get it. And as a member, one of your perks is going to be that you can watch it anytime. So it'll be there for you to watch or listen to.
Keep in mind, membership to the APN is not only cheaper than Netflix these days, but doesn't pay those fat cats anything. And you get high quality podcasts on various subjects. As a member, you get them commercial free. You get them early. You get all the live events that we have. They're going to be coming up. I mean, I just paid almost $300 for this live for this platform to do these live events. We are going to be using this.
We are going to use it. We just really want to go in this direction and just, create more content. It's just so fun. So
we're not going to stop doing the free podcast, of course.
No, of course
but we're
not.
just adding more value for those of us for those of you that want to support us.
Yes.
And help keep this going, because this takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. We love doing it. But to be honest, as independent consultants, like really both of us are, this takes time away from, to be honest, things that make money and pay the bills.
Yeah.
So help bring some cash into here, cover expenses for the APN, help our other hosts to get paid, and help keep all this going.
Yep.
So with that, we will end this show. And again, we'll pick this right up again on the bonus content. The bonus content is available at the same time that the regular show is available. Mm-hmm. So look for it at that time. If you have early access to the show, you have early access to the bonus content as well. Mm-hmm. And that means you're a member, and thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Again, ArchPodNet.com/members. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Archaeology Show. Feel free to comment and view the show notes on the website at www.archpodnet.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at ArchPodNet. Music for this show is called I Wish You Would Look from the band Sea Hero. Again, thanks for listening and have an awesome day. This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Cultural Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One with pico and creamy chipotle ranch, and the other with bacon and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Taco experts since now. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
.com.